Hello again. Well, I'm sure like me, in your garden you've got lots of herbs growing at the moment, from mint, lavender, rosemary, sage and oregano. They're all putting on a lot of growth. And the other thing that we've got a lot of is sunshine, hopefully. And whilst the sun's shining, there's nothing better than to cut some of those herbs and dry them. Now, earlier in the video, you would have seen me out in my own garden and I was drying all of this mint. Well, first of all, I cut it, and then I've been drying it in the sun. And I just wanted to show you that I also cut some rosemary, and that still isn't dry. And I can tell that because it's still quite sappy and bendy. But in this old container I'm recycling is some that I dried earlier, and you can see that that is really quite crisp. And I've left that quite chunky because I'm using that mainly for cookery. So I just wanted to show you that with rosemary. Here, I took some sage, I literally let it dry out in the sun, and I shredded these leaves from those stems. And again, because I'm going to largely use this for cookery, I've left them quite coarse, because over the course of winter, when I'm going to come to use them, I can tear it if I want to, but they're quite nice and big. And literally that can now be stored in any container that you've got. So I've got some jam pots here. Here earlier I showed you my recycled tin for the rosemary, and you can also use kilner jars. And really, I mean, it's quite simple. I'm just gonna force them in until that's packed. And then as long as I store this in a dark place or in the back of my cupboard, these dried herbs won't lose their colour. If I leave them out in the sun, in the kitchen, on the side, then they will lose their colour and they'll all go a bit brown. So that needs to stay in the dark to stay green. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is what I was doing with the mint. So the mint I've dried really quite stiff. And with mint, thyme and lavender, you can make tea with that ever so easily. All you need is your pestle and mortar, and you just break the leaves off in. Don't use the stem, it's woody, it tastes a bit bitter. We just want the leaves at the moment. And if I want that nice and fine, then I'm going to put them in and grind them up, basically. That way I would get powder. I'm not a great fan of powders, I like just a little bit more chunky. So actually, if I just continue to take the leaves off of the stems, literally with my fingers I can shred them in there. And I've got about 3 different types of mint here. I've got ordinary garden mint, as I would call it. I've got some basil mint, and I've also got this silvery leaved apple mint. And really, in a few minutes I can cut them, dry them over a couple of days, and then turn them into my own mint tea. And mint tea is very good for digestion. You can take it with fresh mint, or of course over winter, because this is a herbaceous perennial, when it's not outside in the garden, rather than relying on something else, you can just take this year's mint and use it. This will last dried for a good year if you store it in a nice, cool, dark place. Again, out in the sun, you're going to lose the colour and some of the vitality. And once that's full, and you can really press it down, once that's full, you can just shut the lid on that and use it at your leisure. So all of the herbs in the garden are herbaceous herbs, and the woody herbs like rosemary and sage can literally be cut now, laid out in the sun to dry, and then broken down and stored like this. If it's not going to stay sunny, if it turns rainy, you can still do this. All you need to do is set the oven on the lowest setting, so that's around 50. Put the herbs laid out on baking trays and let them dry for 3 to 4 hours. Take them out, let them cool, and then again break them up like I've done here, separating out the woody bits that you don't need, which are going to go to the compost, leaving you with the leaves, which you can either leave coarse like this or chop down to your heart's content. If you mix together lavender, sage, rosemary, thyme, oregano, then essentially that as a blend is herbs de Provence as well. So This can be used for cooking, it can be used for teas, and you've seen that I've used some herbs before for face rubs. Anyway, there you are, just something that you can be doing over the weekend, using what's in the garden to make something for winter.